They say they wanna hear that raw shit. These niggas claiming that they bullshit. These niggas better move it cautious. Cause if they make the wrong move, it cautious. You see me, they like, ooh, keep on stopping. I'm on my way up and they ain't gon' stop it. They say they wanna hear that raw shit. Coming up on by the bullshit. They see me, they like, ooh, keep on stopping. I'm on my body, real niggas right beside me. Damn right, I brought my army. Going up like a rocket, and can't nobody stop me. These niggas garbage, so watch your mouth, boy. Coming all black, slithering house, call me mouth, boy. I'm off the hip like a cowboy. I'm a king, you should bow, boy. Shorty like, damn, man, you cut up. Nothing I can handle. 144 in the booth, going Rambo. Niggas do you dirty like a stick in a bando. That's why I play the corner like a bum with a banjo. I'ma lead by example. Ooh, keep on sobbing, got this bitch off the hand. Got this juice, got the drip, about to hit the bitch with the salt. It ain't rap, it's assault. Can't taste a bitch unless you with the coke. They say they wanna hear that raw shit. These niggas claiming that they bullshit. These niggas better move it cautious. Cause if they make the wrong move, it cautious.
Hey, one West, one West, one West, one West, one West.
Coming up on my bullshit.
I do it how a veteran be. You better than me. I'm Reggie at the edge of the key. It's all money, no honey. Think you settle and see. You locked up, fucked up, and it's back to the streets. It's one West. You can check the residency. I reside with soldiers died on the soles of their feet. Cause it's death before designer. Ain't no coward in me. Cause I'm cold as a bitch's shoulder. You ain't calling a week. Get the cooking on this beat. Hope you like it well done. Got them killers rolling with me and they all red rum, red rum, red rum. Got you fuckers scared some. Hit the banging on this beat till my fucking head numb. Black Glock, red drum, black and yellow air ones. Homie, you ain't got a vest. I suggest you wear one.
Told these niggas we was going up. They was doing a lot of talking. Now these niggas ain't saying shit.
Feeling like a legend in this shit. Lil nigga, I'm past veteran. Never feeling third. Lil nigga, I'm past second. Guns, I gotta have them all like Ash Ketchum. Shotty break a nigga ribs up like his wife left him. We all steppin'. Kill you with kindness cause I'm dead nice. That 5'7" put you 6 feet, not talking height. That judge giving out 5, what you do in life. These hands are rude GPS. A mean right, that's mean right. We build different, you know the vibes. And we stamped it authentic, we notarized. I keep a 144 because I know a kind. Noah's Ark, you know I'm with animals when we flowing by. We back again, no cap, when I'm with Cap again. Yeah, they say they want smoke until we matching them. Everything righteous, so you know when we get back at them, you get hit up with a K, but no acronym.
They say they wanna hear that raw shit. These niggas claiming that they bullshit. These niggas better move it cautious. Cause if they make the wrong move, it cautious. You see me, they like, ooh, keep on stopping. I'm on my way up and they ain't gon' stop it. They say they wanna hear that raw shit. Coming up on by the bullshit.
West till they bury me. I'm one West till they bury me. I'm one West till they bury me. I be one West to the death till they bury me. One West till they bury me. I'm one West till they bury me. I'm one West till they bury me. I be one West to the death till they bury me. I be one West to the death till they bury me. They ain't scaring me. Rip the soul out of Pharisee. Speaking heresy, it get you fucked up apparently. It's like they daring me. I said chill, they ain't hearing me. They ain't listening. Every bar nitroglycerin. Hit your heart, bring it back to start, make you live again. Get them dividends, or we start getting ignorant. I be on that soldier shit. I told you shit phenomenal. Nah, but he a domino. So what you suckers trying to do? Rhyming comical, guess it's funny until I'm bombing you. Bring apocalypse to them pussy niggas that's popping shit. Team up
all-stars. I coach them up like I'm Popovich. Fuck the politics and the lobbyists and apologists. They vagina, so we gon' check them like gynecologists. It's kinda obvious how the situation is ominous. The way I vomit this and regurgitate for the audience. They start applauding this cause the competition is fraudulent. From the era where niggas smoke you up like a parliament. The flow been stupid, shit has gotten retarded since. All the dominance of one West rising to prominence. Cause I be one West to the death till they bury me. I'm one West till they bury me. I be one West to the death till they bury me. I'm one West till they bury me. I be one West to the death till they bury me. I'm one West till they bury me. I be one West to the death till they bury me. I'm one West till they bury me. They want a nigga quiet, mute my maneuvers, but I ride like I got Groupon for Uber. Rhymes hard like they been viewed by Medusa. 9 milli Luger, 17 in the Ruger. Only need a few to sit up in your medulla. Obligata for the regatta, niggas wildin', they win every dollar. They riding by in black Impalas, let the semi holler. A showstopper, been this proper since the teeny bopper. But now I'm going them off Patron, a premium of vodka. I put extensions on the Glock, modified the chopper. The war heavy, war ready, and that's worth the mama. No marijuana, say I got the loudest silence on it. When I'm up on it, ain't no rapper do it like I do it. A lot of spitties and writers, but when the heat's on, none of them can get to the fire around with me. And I had a nigga spin like a tire, down the D, and I'm still dope as a piper. Every bar burn hard like a spoon with a lighter. Fuel to igniter, I'm winning, coming through with the title because UPK. I be one West to the death till they bury me. I'm one West till they bury me. I be one West to the death till they bury me. I'm one West till they bury me. I be one West to the death till they bury me. I'm one West till they bury me. I be one West to the death till they bury me. I'm one West till they bury me.
Yeah, on 44 shit, you know what I mean? Busy man. Look, when that shit drop, you step all the way on their neck, step on their neck and they head with that shit.
Fine then, I ain't show no mercy, we gon' show them boy what time it is. I pop out like I'm Samuel, I got time to kill. Haters thought I died, I survived. They don't know how I did it, got it out the mud, straight to glory. They don't know how I feel, he nice but he don't show them skills, how I show them skills. He ride but he don't work the wheel, how I work the wheel. They mad, I'm too solid, circle tight, yeah, vacuum seal. No, they want my life, I ain't worried, I got rank for real. I got real soldiers, kill for me, nigga, watch yourself. They say you been in beast mode lately, you is not self. When you dropping that fire, precious marriage, they inquiring. They can't stop what's coming, but I see them conspiring. Cross the line, them firing. This bitch here, finna break the spin. No kindness, I don't trust you, circle small. You can keep your features. Me and my niggas don't keep no secrets. In the feel like Jeepers Creepers, say they want some smoke, dawg. So I brought these chimney sweeps. Ain't coming like we coming, you can't even count. These niggas don't run it like we running, bitch, don't even start. Bitch, I'm with my niggas till the end, till death do us part. So if you wanna leave, you can leave, bitch, bless your heart. Fine then, I ain't show no mercy, we gon' show them boy what time it is. I pop out like I'm Samuel, I got time to kill. Haters thought I died, I survived. They don't know how I did it, got it out the mud, straight to glory. They don't know how I feel, he nice but he don't show them skills, how I show them skills. He ride but he don't work the wheel, how I work the wheel. Ooh, I got a man, circle tight, yeah, vacuum seal. I heard they want my life, I ain't worried, I got rate for real. Take over in effect, yeah, I'm fully focused. You might not see it on me, just know it's women, that bitch fully loaded. Ooh, yeah, we up and rolling. Told them I need major motion. Think I'm joking, I'ma school them niggas like they baby Jody. Got it out the dust, now I'm too clean, don't know why they hate me. What you want out life, dawg? Guns and butter, baby boy. UPK top, dawg. Certified road runner. I'ma turn that Ecoline van to a damn tank. I got choppers stashed in the attic like they Anne Frank. They had that shit on lock till I snapped on them like bolt cutters. You cannot play both sides, gotta choose your
Shalom, Israel. I am priest and officer of 500 Consigliere of ISUPK Atlanta. Start out of 1 West, 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under commanding General Yohana. We are not affiliated with any other so-called Israelite group.
Right.
If it is not of the ISUPK, it is not of the truth. That being said, Yahweh Ba'Hashem Yahweh Shah to the brothers, Yahweh Ba'Hashem Yahweh Shemai Latah Ba'Hashem Yahweh Shah to the sisters. Tonight is the Biblical Brotherhood class, and my topic is Atlanta Brave. Now, the basis of this topic tonight is going to go into what happened to our brothers here in Atlanta 2 Saturdays ago, but I'm also going to hone in on what it is to be fearless, what it is to be brave, what it is to have courage, and to actually show you that it's in the Bible that we aren't supposed to fear anything, especially man. So the goal for tonight, after this class is over with, for those of you who are just tuning in, who are new to this truth, who are tuning in so that you can learn who you are, I'm going to let you understand through the Bible that the Most High gave us power. He gave us strength. He gave us courage to go out and do this, to go out and teach this truth and face the adversities that we face the evil that we face and the darkness that we face with strength, with power, and with courage. Because you cannot do that. You can't do what we do if you're a coward.
Right.
You cannot do this job, which is the greatest job on earth, is to go out and tell our people who they are. Right. To go out and tell our people that this is what you're supposed to do to survive in the hell that we're in. Before I go any further, do I have anyone on the call right now? All right, we don't have anyone on the call. Shalom, Yahweh, Shem, Yahweh, I see you, Halak.
Come on, sir. Y'all about you, how some thought. You Tawab, sir?
I'm Tawab. It's excellent to see you. How about yourself?
I'm Tawab, sir. Likewise on my end.
Excellent. That's good to hear. It's good to hear. So, before we get started, Halak, you have any questions?
La, sir.
Excellent. All right, well, then we're about to get to it. As I said, tonight's topic is Atlanta Brave. And like I said, we're going to discuss bravery. And when it comes to being brave, it is not just a matter of a physical thing where you may be in a physical altercation. You have to have no fear. You have to have courage and be brave in any task that you're set forth before you to go and do. You have to have courage to do it in order for it to be done. Right. And the reason why I'm breaking this down to you is because fear is something that is debilitating. And what I mean by I say debilitating, it can stop you from moving forward. Now, there is a level of fear that comes with wisdom. And what I want you to understand is when I say no fear of man and no fear of anything, that doesn't mean that there isn't something that we don't fear or someone. And who we are to fear is the Most High God, Yahweh. That's who we're supposed to fear. Because by fearing him, that is the beginning of wisdom.
Right.
So with that wisdom, it intercedes with a level of, I'm not going to say fear, but a level of carefulness when we operate. So you have to be wise within things that you do. But when it comes to doing this work, when it comes to standing up for the faith and defending this truth, by no means can we be cowards. By no means can we be fearful.
Right.
In order to defend this faith, in order to defend this truth, we have to have a fearless personality, but also we have to operate in brotherhood.
That's right.
You can't operate in brotherhood if you're fearful. Understand, tonight's topic is going to dive deep into what it is to have courage. What happened with our brothers 2 weeks ago, it was unfortunate, but fortunate at the same time. And the reason why I say that is because the area that we go to week in and week out, and they hear the things that we say. For some of them, it goes in one ear, right out the other, and for some of them, it stops. They listen to it, but they don't just quite act on it because maybe the ones that are next to them will look at them funny. You know what that means? That means that they're cowards. That means that they see something, that they hear something and know that it's true, but they don't really want to say anything or come over there and be like, yeah, let me get a flyer, because they're afraid of what the person next to them might think. You see, to have this truth, you have to have courage. It isn't something that's just going to be given to you. You have to work for this. It is very, I'd say, easy to try to say, okay, yeah, I believe. But when you come into the ISUPK, it's very difficult to stay in the ISUPK. I've heard General Hyman say this, and understanding that there are going to be times when you're going to be challenged into doing what you're supposed to do. This is not going to be easy. And a part of this not being easy is when you're going to be challenged as far as your courage is concerned.
Right.
There are going to be situations where you're going to have to stand there and decide, am I going to be a coward and turn and walk away? Or am I going to stand my ground, stand on my square, and push forward and make my forehead as hard as their forehead when delivering this truth?
Right.
Myself, along with Officer Adar, along with Trooper Halak, we know what it is to stand here. We know what it is to stand on our square and to look forward because we're in this truth. We have Officer Salaki, we have Trooper Halak, and not to bring a lot of attention to this brother, but he's in a wheelchair. But guess what? He has no fear of coming out to do what needs to be done.
That's right.
He's gone out and been with us when we would go to feed the people. He's gone out and been with us to show that he has no fear when it comes to his word, because the Most High said for us to what? He commanded us to not have any fear, but to be of good faith and good courage and to not be dismayed. That's what he told us. So that brother's an example of that. The 8 men who went out last week, they're an example of that. The 100 men that they faced, or I'm not even going to say 100 men. I'm going to say the 100 purple penis eaters, the 100 cowards that they stood in front of.
Right.
They didn't cower down to them because of their numbers. They stood there strong and fearless. Can you say that you would do that? Because most people wouldn't. Most people would have turned tail and ran. They would have packed up and left, which is what many of those other Israelite groups did. But when they came onto the scene of where we were, we didn't move. Their numbers meant nothing to us because the Most High said, I will be with you whithersoever you goest. So when I look at my brothers in Kentucky, the Kentucky 8, they were fearless.
Right.
When I look at my brothers in Kansas City, the Kansas City 4, they were fearless.
Right.
When I look at my brothers here in Atlanta, the Atlanta 8, they were fearless.
Right.
And also when I look at my brothers in Texas, who went on the mission to Acuña, a level 4 area in Mexico, they were fearless. You know why? Because the Most High said that he would be with us whithersoever we go. You know why we know that he's with us? Because we follow these laws, statutes, and commandments. Because we follow the laws, statutes, and commandments, we know that the Most High is with us. What I'm going to do now is we're going to get into some of these scriptures. Got a lot of stuff to go into, but I want to push it that you understand that we are not to be afraid of anything. Matter of fact, a verse that's used at camp and in class constantly is Zephaniah 2:1. And that is, come together, O nation not desired. That nation not desired is blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. And guess what? You can't come together, blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, because of fear. Fear of what your oppressor may do if you come to defend your brother.
Right.
Now, I'm not going to veer off too far on that, but I'm going to help you to understand this as I lay this foundation when I say that you're afraid to come together and defend your brother. There was one instance, and it's going to go down in history because we don't hear this often, of a brother who came in, not a brother, but brothers who came to the aid of another brother. They didn't have any fear. They came together and went to the aid of a brother. And that right there goes back to what I believe was August 5th with the Alabama Brawl.
Right.
Those brothers didn't have any fear. The brother who jumped in the water and swam across to the dock didn't have any fear.
Right.
They saw one of their own being attacked by the oppressor, and they showed brotherhood.
Right.
Guess who's the greatest example of brotherhood of what those brothers went and did? It's actually in us to do these things, but it's been pushed on us to not do it. But who was the best example of that? Yahushua, whom we ignorantly call Jesus Christ. But for the sake of teaching purposes, we will stick with Jesus. He died for us. He died for each and every black, Hispanic, and Native Indian. That right there showed courage. That right there showed bravery. That right there showed fearlessness. So with that, if you would, Halak, I need you to pull up the book of 2 Timothy, chapter 1, verse 7, Baba Kasha.
Come. The book of 2 Timothy, chapter 1 and verse 7. Salaki, sir.
You know, hold on one second. Who's that? Who do we have on the call? Shalom Yabashim Rashak. What's going on? Tawab, good to hear from you. Let me get you down. All right, Malak, go ahead, Warrior.
Come. 2 Timothy chapter 1 and verse 7. For God has not given us the spirit of fear.
Stop right there. For God did not give us the spirit of fear. God did not give us the spirit of fear. Continue.
Come. But of power, of love, and of sound mind.
Now, in this, I want you to understand what was going on with this. When it says here in 2 Timothy, for God did not give us the spirit of fear, Paul was dealing with Timothy because he knew that Timothy was timid. You know, he was, I guess you could say, fearful. And he knew that there was work that needed to be done. Paul had to encourage him and let him know that God didn't give you a spirit of fear. So I need you to tighten the hell up so you can go out here and deliver this truth. So when Paul was speaking, he said, for God did not give us a spirit of fear, but of power. Power, understand that power, when the Holy Spirit, when the Most High puts that Holy Spirit upon us, his vibe, that same thing that he put on Samson, when Samson slew the Philistines, that was the Holy Spirit, had the strength of the Holy Spirit. So letting them know, for God didn't give you the spirit of fear. So if you understand that the Most High didn't give you the spirit of fear, what's the problem? Get out here and go do this work. That's why the Most High said this. That's why Paul was telling Timothy, for God did not give you the spirit of fear. So we understand this. If we understand this and truly believe it, we know that that also applies to us. Sure. That he didn't give us the spirit of fear. Everything that we do, we have to do it with courage. We have to do it with the mindset that we're going to do it and get it done. If you believe that you can't get it done, then you won't get it done. Thinking that you can't do it is because of fear of something. Right. So understand that fear isn't always going to be a physical thing. It's also a spiritual thing. Right. It's a thing mentally that you're dealing with because you think you can't. But the Most High is telling us that we can. If you would read that verse one more time, Warrior.
Come. 2 Timothy chapter 1 and verse 7. For God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power, of love, and of sound mind.
Yes, of power, of love, and of a sound mind. Now, understand this. With the class, I like to make sure that I break it down to powder so that you get the understanding of what it is that we're discussing. So I'm going to give you the definition of fear. Fear, it's a noun in this sense, an unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that someone or something is dangerous, likely to cause pain or a threat. That's what it says. Fear is a noun. As the verb, it says to be afraid of. It's likely to be dangerous, painful, or threatening. So if you're understanding here, when it says an unpleasant emotion, so what it's letting you know is that emotion, that fear, that's a feeling. You're afraid of something. You think that something's going to happen. So that emotion is what's clouding you. That emotion is what's stopping you. Because when you're fearful, you won't think clear all the time. All right. Matter of fact, you won't even move how you're supposed to move when you're afraid. Sometimes you have to react quickly and react quickly with wisdom. But to react quickly with wisdom, you have to be fearless. Right. So in this unpleasant emotion caused by the belief of someone or something dangerous, if that right there is what your problem is, then guess what? You can't come into the ISUPK and go out to these streets and teach this truth. That's right. Because you don't see T.D. Jakes, you don't see Al Sharpton, you don't see any of these prominent pastors. Matter of fact, any of these pork chop eating pastors, you don't see any of them out in the areas where we go. Right. The word says that we're supposed to go out into the chief concourse of the city or of the land. The chief concourse is the main city where our people are, where you'll see the majority of us in despair. You will see drug addicts. You'll see pimps. You'll see prostitutes. You'll see killers. You'll see drug dealers. You'll see all those things, and we'll be right there next to them. Some people aren't made for that. Some people aren't built for that. So therefore, guess what they don't do? They stay behind the pulpit on Wednesday and on Sunday, and they tell you a good story and tell you that everything's going to be okay. And then you send them your tithes, and then they go on about their business. But they don't go outside those doors and go out to the people unless it's Christmas, unless it's Thanksgiving. And they go out there and they pass out a turkey or a pork plate of some sort. And then they run back in. They don't go out and do this work as we are called to go out and do this work. To go out to the highways and the byways to tell this truth to our people. We can do that because there's no fear here.
That's right.
Understanding when the men in Texas went out into Acuna to make sure that our brothers and sisters who were out there had food, clothes, and water, that was a powerful thing because the area that they went into was a level 4 area run by the cartel. If you know anything about the cartel, they'll cut your head off just to make a point. But guess what? The men in the ISUPK aren't concerned with that because death doesn't stop us.
Right.
We understand that we never die, actually. And what I mean when I say that we never die is through regeneration. If I were to die today, I'm going to be back. But it takes a special type of brother to understand that and to believe that if I'm gone, that I'm going to be back. So therefore, let me go ahead and do this truth. It has to be something that you believe in greater than yourself.
Right.
If you don't believe in this truth, if you don't believe in your brothers or this brotherhood, you cannot stand on your square. You can't go out and do this. Every time when I go out to camp with my brothers, in my mind, I know there's a possibility that something could happen and either myself or a brother could not make it back. But my job is to, before I let my brothers go down, let me stand there. I have to be that way. Therefore, or I can't go out there. I can't. We aren't cowards in the ISUPK.
That's right.
I want that to be understood and clear. We are not cowards. And the point that I was making about the people who are out there while we're there, one of the things that I noticed is that sometimes we have scoffers. A lot of times we have scoffers. But because of this truth, because of what is in this book, because of what Commander General Yohana has instilled in us, there was a sister out there who normally has something foul to say to us every single time. But on this particular day, she came in on the tail end of what was going on and knew that the purple penis eaters tried to attack the warriors out there, the men of God.
Right.
She understood what was going on. And one of the things that she said was that, oh, them brothers right there stood their ground. Matter of fact, several people out there said those brothers stood their ground. It was almost as though some of them were shocked, but at the same time, some of them were like, damn. So everything that they say when they come out here about brotherhood is real.
Right.
Everything they say when they come out here and speaking about the law is real. Everything they say when they come out here and say that they will die for their brothers is real.
Right.
Because they were able to visually see that. But guess who they won't see do that? You will not see Creflo Dollar do that.
That's right.
Because Creflo Dollar is sitting in his $35 million mansion. Creflo Dollar is flying on his $65 million jet. Creflo Dollar is driving his $300,000 Rolls Royce.
Right.
He would never be out there risking his life for you Negroes. He would never do that. T.D. Jakes would never do that. Any of these black pastors would never do that.
That's right.
And especially your oppressor pastor. He definitely won't do it either.
Right.
But Yahushua was the example. Told us what greater love than it be than a man die for his friend.
That's right.
He said that. Go ahead, Unlock.
If I could, just real quick, you mentioned the oppressor pastor. One of the best examples that I can think of is when I believe it was Hurricane Harvey that hit Houston. And you had a church that is the size of a basketball stadium that their doors were closed.
Right.
But yet there were at least 10 cars parked nice and neatly in the front office.
Right.
And that was Joel Osteen's church.
That's right.
He was hiding in his church.
Right.
During the hurricane, and he refused to open his doors to the because a brother put his church on the internet and it went viral.
Right.
And he had to open his doors to people to give people refuge and shelter.
That's right. That's right. That's a heavy point. That is another. There's a prominent pastor, Joel Osteen, the $1 Million Man, who did not want to open his doors to let you in.
Right.
Now, the reason why we bring this up about these pastors in these churches and how they don't open the doors to let you in and how they don't come out the doors to keep you safe. We're here to let you know that what we do here in the ISUPK is we keep the doors open. The doors stay open for Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians in the ISUPK. The doors of the school have never closed.
Right.
The pandemic, open. During the pandemic for the church, closed.
Oh.
The reason why we were open, although people out there had coronavirus and were dying by the hundreds daily, the ISUPK never closed its doors. You know why? Because the Lord is with us.
That's right.
You know why? Because there's no fear. We don't fear those things.
That's right.
If we understand that the Most High is with us, then let us open the doors to our people. Let us continue to conduct ourselves the way we're supposed to, and we did that. Were we able to continue to go out to camp? No, because there was a restriction that the city made, so we weren't allowed to go out there. But the doors continued to be open. The brothers continued to teach. The brothers continued to come in. Matter of fact, that's when I came into the truth during the pandemic. Why? If the doors were closed, I wouldn't have been able to come into the school. Understand that. If the doors were made closed, I wouldn't have been able to come in. Shalom on Christ. Who do I have? Shalom, Lord in Christ, warrior. What's going on, warrior? You twat? Excellent. This right here is actually one of the Atlanta 8.
Right.
We have two of them, Officer Makwalat on the phone and Officer Mawasar with us. The water to you both for your service.
Right.
Absolutely. We're going to get into that more as we get along with class. Although over a week ago, I'm still going to give those brothers their glory because they deserve it. They deserve it because these men are men who are worth following.
Right.
The men that you follow out in these streets, the men that you follow out in the world, they won't die for you.
That's right.
Those cats that you run with, that you're gang banging with, they're not going to die for you. When they're shooting next to you, they're shooting out of fear, not shooting to protect you.
Right.
They're shooting out of fear. When y'all are fighting out in the streets, he's not fighting next to you. He's fighting out of fear. Because if he really believed what he believed when it came to these gangs, he'd be willing to die for the gang. But he's not willing to die for the gang. But guess what? We are willing to die for this truth.
Right.
I can't stress that to you enough. Go ahead, warrior.
Young man, Desmond checking in.
Young man Desmond, Shalom on Christ, warrior. What's going on with you? How you doing?
Well, great. Everything's a while.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to seeing you here this weekend. I'm sure I'm gonna see you, right?
I have to work, but I can try to take off though.
You know what? I'm not gonna put you under that pressure, brother. I'm just hoping to see the brotherhood. So if you can make it, that'd be excellent. You got any? Excellent. You got any questions? Excellent, excellent. We're gonna continue then. So what we're doing is we're discussing, for you just coming in, what we're talking about is the Atlanta Brave.
Right.
The topic of being fearless. Something that as men we have to operate in.
That's right.
Something as men of God that we have to operate in. And it's in our nature. We're soldiers by nature. We're warriors by nature. Why? Because who we sprang from is a warrior by nature.
Right. And
who we sprang from? I know for myself, I'm from the tribe of Judah. And guess who came out of the tribe of Judah? Jesus, Yahushua.
Right.
And he wasn't no coward.
That's
So So as I continue, I want you to just understand that tonight is going to be heavy on cowardness and fearlessness.
right.
So you'll understand before this class is over which one of those sides you fall in. Are you fearless or are you a coward?
Right.
Because there is a proverb that we have here in the school, And I want to see what brother here can tell me right now what the proverb is that we have here in the ISUPK. Anybody want to answer what that proverb is? Who do I have on the phone? Who's saying that? What's that? Okay, what's that? What was your answer? You're damn right. No cowards. Give that brother a hand. Right there is a proverb that we have here in the school. No cowards. You can't be, because it'll stop you from doing the work. Now, let me go ahead and continue. Let me see. That being said, with that work that we do here in the ISUPK, we understand that fear isn't an option. We understand that one of the things that we go by here is no cowards, and we reiterate that all the time. We reiterate that daily so that it's imprinted in your mind, so you keep your thought process of no fear, no cowards, understanding that at any time something could go down. Now, as I was saying, what it means to have no fear isn't just a physical thing. It takes courage to keep your integrity. It takes courage to do the right thing. You see, oftentimes when you do the wrong thing, you're afraid of doing the right thing.
Right.
So that right there is a fear as well. That's why I want you to understand it's a mental thing, and it's not of the Lord. Because clearly here in 2 Timothy, as Paul was saying to Timothy, for God did not give us the spirit of fear, because he knew Timothy had that timid spirit about him. So he had to encourage him and tell him, God said this. God didn't give us a spirit of fear.
That's right.
But we're going to continue. Now, let me see. Go ahead, Warrior. What's going on, young man? Paul, excellent. Good to hear from you. Let me go ahead and get you down. All right, so I'll continue. So as I said in 2 Timothy, for God did not give us the spirit of fear. So now my question to you is, what spirit is fear? What is that? So like the one behind you.
Shalom, brother. Shalom.
So like y'all there? Are you brothers there? Okay, we still have our callers. Okay, so once again, the question is, in 2 Timothy, when it's saying, in 2 Timothy 1:7, for God did not give us a spirit of fear, my question to you is, what kind of spirit is fear? Can someone answer that question? What kind of spirit is fear?
If I may.
Go ahead, Warrior.
That would be a coward spirit.
So like you say that again?
That would be a cowardly spirit.
Yes, it is a cowardly spirit, but the spirit of fear is an unclean spirit.
Come on.
You know, anything that is not of God is unclean. Any spirit that's not of God is an unclean spirit. Because fear stops us from doing everything. Now, understand this. We're supposed to have a fear of the Lord. These aren't the same type of fear. We're supposed to have a fear of the Lord. But if anything else, no, there is absolutely no fear. So that's an unclean spirit when you aren't able to do what it is that you need to do to bring forth this truth. It's an unclean spirit, because what it does is it makes us subject to bondage. And what I mean when I say fear makes us subject to bondage, it stops us from moving. The children of Israel stopped moving because of the oppressor. The oppressor had them in a spirit of fear. So what does it do? It stops them from helping each other. That's why it's so great of what happened in Birmingham. Those brothers didn't have the spirit of fear, so they went and helped their brother. But right. because of the way our people have been trained, we've been do. So it stops us from even helping our own people. It stops us from rendering aid to our own people out of fear of what the oppressor may do to us. Understand that. That's bondage. Fear has you handcuffed. Fear keeps you from moving, from doing what you need to do. So once again, if you're in the ISUPK, you can't have any fear in you to go out there and teach this truth, because if it stops you from doing what you need to do, it'll stop you from being Makalat. It'll stop you from being Mawasar. It'll stop you from being Yawa'ah. It'll stop you from being Azariala. It'll stop you from being Napash. It'll stop you from being Salakia, from being Officer Yarmiyah. It'll stop you from being those 8 brothers from going out and going to war for their people. It'll stop you from doing that. I'm going to continue. Have any questions?
No, sir.
Go ahead, Warren. Absolutely. Because if you have faith in the Most High God, then you understand when His Scripture tells us that He commands us to not be afraid, but of good courage. So absolutely, that's no faith. That's why Timothy had to be reminded by Paul, for God did not give us the spirit of fear. It's almost like you can say, well, don't you have faith in the God that you serve? So actually, that's an excellent point, Mawasar. I'm going to continue because once again, like I said, what it does is it causes that bondage, and it keeps you from going out and being the warrior that you're supposed to be. Imagine, because of fear, you're out there, you're teaching this truth, and people come up that are much greater than you, bigger, stronger, all these things, like a huge army. And when you see that, you no longer are bringing forth the truth. It causes you to grow weary, to want to faint. Imagine that. Can you deliver the truth like that? Absolutely not. When Yahushua was taken up on that cross, he was looking out at the crowd of people. He knew what they had been doing to him the entire time. Yet he still took that spear in his side, still took that crown of thorns. He still took those nails in his feet and those nails in his wrist.
Sure.
He still did those things because there was something that he had to do. He had to die for our people, for us to do what? To be willing to die for our people. He died for us so you could die for your brother.
Right.
Understand that. He died for us so you could die for your brother. For we would die, so we could die for our people. Understanding that, when you go back to Zephaniah 2:1, when it says, come together, O nation not desire. That's not come together for this big party.
Right.
That's come together because we have an enemy. That's come together because without coming together, we're apart. And us separate is what? Weak.
Right.
But us together is what? Strong. So we have to come together to be strong to face what? This enemy, so that we can handle this hell that we're in. But until we get rid of the fear, until we look at the oppressor as flesh and bones and know that he can't take the soul, he may be able to take the body, but not the soul. If you understand that and believe that, what can man do to you? Nothing.
Right.
There's no power in that. We know who we are. You have to be willing to die for this truth. I mean, Yahushua did it. He was the perfect example.
Right.
So my question for all of you is this. As a whole, what is it that we fear the most? As a whole, what is it that, when I say people, I'm not including the oppressor. I'm just talking about us.
Right.
As a whole, what is it that we fear the most? Somebody give me that answer. Go ahead, Warrior.
You talking about we as an Israel or just people, period?
I mean, when I'm talking about Israel, we can look at people, period, because as a whole, what do people fear the most? keep the thought process in the topic of the class and what we're discussing. What do people fear the most?
Philosopher.
Go ahead, Warren.
If I may add one, I would say that what people fear the most is death.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Correct. What people fear the most is death.
Right.
And because we fear death, we can't do what it is that we're supposed to. Matter of fact, because understand this. Because we fear death, we can't love properly. I want you to think about that. Because we fear death, we can't love properly. We're afraid to love our brother and sister.
Right.
Because we fear death. Your Christian pastor won't be able to break this down to you, but I'm going to. By fearing death, you won't be able to stand next to your brother and die for him.
That's right.
By fearing death, if Yahweh feared death, we would be doomed. If Yahweh feared death, we would be doomed. But if you don't fear death, not fearing death is actually life. Think about that. Not fearing death is life. Because then you can do what? You can live. But if you are living in fear of death, you're not living at all. Right. So understanding how powerful fear is, that's why the Most High said he didn't give us that spirit. That's why I told you that fear is an unclean spirit. Fear is not of God.
Right.
Because it helps you to understand that you cannot move forward. So I'm going to give you this definition. Death defined as this: the action of or fact of dying or being killed, the end of the life of a person or organism. We're not even going to worry about the word organism. But once again, the action or fact of dying or being killed, the end of life of a person. So the majority of people fear dying. That's something that we fear. Anything else, I mean, you can think to yourself, well, I don't want anything to happen. I don't want to lose my house. I don't lose my car. I don't want to lose my job. I don't want to get hurt. But ultimately, you don't want to die. But see, the Christian pastor, for him to be the coward that he is, for Christianity to be so cowardice as it is, what is the one thing that they tell you have to do to have the kingdom? You got to die to go to heaven.
Right.
They don't want to die.
That's right.
They don't want to die, but they tell you got to die to go to heaven. Listen to that. We're telling you that you have to die so that you can live. Understand that. That old man has to die. When the old man has to die in this truth, you've come into this truth. Guess what? The warrior comes out and then you're living.
Right.
Go ahead, Adamant.
And so, like, if I could, also another thing that the Christians fear, if I could, not only do they fear death, they also fear the oppressor.
Right. Absolutely.
They also fear the oppressor. You understand? They've seen his history.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? They are absolutely afraid of. But the ISUPK is not afraid of the oppressor. And if I could, just read a precept real quick, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
I saw that you read a very good precept. You understand, like, to not fear them who cannot kill the spirit. Mm-hmm. But if I could, we could Halak. If you could read for me Psalms chapter 27, verse 1.
Come. The book of Psalms, chapter 27, verse 1. The Lord is my light, and salvation. Whom shall I fear?
That's right. Whom shall I fear? You understand? The Lord is our salvation. The Lord is our light. You understand? He is our guidance. He is our guide. You understand? He is the one who can actually save us. You understand? Whom shall we fear? We can't fear the oppressor, because the oppressor has no guidance. You understand? The oppressor cannot save us. The oppressor is the one who has been making us suffer. You understand? The oppressor is the one who's been who has been trying to make our lives a living hell on this earth. The oppressor is the one who has been trying to make our lives expire on this earth. You understand? Keep going.
Come. The Lord is the strength of my life.
He is the strength of my life.
Slovakia. Of whom shall I be afraid?
And not trying to get. That's right. Good. Very good. He is the strength of my life. You know what I'm saying? The Most High is. All right. You know what I'm saying? And when He's the strength of our life, you know what I'm saying? It's not how the Christian church feels. You know what I'm saying? When they sing the song about being the strength of our life, you know what I'm saying? It's not some kind of emotion. You understand? Like, but this is absolutely getting rid of the thought of the fear of not being able to serve the Most High. You understand? The fear of suffering under the oppressor. You understand? We have to get that out of our heads. You understand? And when it says, "Of whom shall I be afraid?" We can't fear the oppressor. You understand? We can't fear death. We have to fear the one who gives the life.
Right.
We have to fear the one who is the strength of our life, and that is the Most High. You understand? Shalaki.
Absolutely. The water for that. Absolutely. That's absolutely correct. And even and to follow that, one of the key things in that is, in order to serve the Most High, you can't be afraid.
Right.
It takes courage to serve the Most High. It takes courage to follow the law, statutes, and commandments. Here's the reason why. When it comes to the law, statutes, and commandments, that means you have to turn away from the things of this world, the things that your family still does, the things that your friends still do. So when you're turning away from that, that means you have to go to them and say, I no longer do these things because they're not of God. So most people, that becomes a challenge for them. The reason why it becomes a challenge for them is because of the fear of letting someone down, the fear of hurting their feelings, the fear of things changing, the fear of walking away from your family if need be. Once again, reiterating that fear is not just a physical thing. It's a spiritual thing. It's a mental thing. So if you don't have the courage to say, look, I can no longer eat pork, shrimp, crab, and lobster because it is not of God. It is not of our culture. We're not supposed to do that. But every time your parents get a chance, they're going to have a fish fry and whip up a whole batch of catfish. Every time the family comes over, they want to barbecue some pork.
Right.
If you have fear of what they're going to think, you know what you're going to do? People who have fear, the reason why they can't serve the Lord is because they compromise Him.
Right.
So fear causes you to not only not be able to do what you're supposed to do in a debilitative state, but it also puts you in a place where you compromise the truth.
That's right.
Where you say to yourself, well, it's okay if I do this, or maybe this time I won't do that. Fear can kill you.
That's right.
Understand that fear of serving the Lord can kill you because you're choosing to serve another God. And what did He say? The Lord said, you're not supposed to put any other God before Him.
Right.
But not only did He say you're not supposed to put any other God before Him, He says that I am a jealous God.
Right.
So think about that. The scripture also lets it be known that He's a great and terrible power. So if He's a great and terrible power, understand what He can do to you for serving another God. Understand what He can do to you because you are afraid to serve Him. You're afraid to do what He asked you to do. Please, let me tell you something. I'm afraid of God.
Right.
I'm scared to death of the Most High.
Come.
I'm scared to death. I need to be, because I had no fear in the world. When I was a Christian, there was no fear. You know why? Because I didn't fear the consequences.
Right.
But I understand that in the scripture it says, for the wages of sin is death. So because the wages of sin is death, I fear what will happen to me if I go out there and do something that I shouldn't be doing.
Right.
Because I know that the Most High can smash me just like that.
Right.
So I want you to understand there's a fear of the Lord, but then there's no fear of man.
That's right.
A fear of the Lord, which is the beginning of wisdom, and then a fear of man. We're going to continue. Because what I want you to understand is the fear of death, I guess you can say, it stops Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians from coming together like they're supposed to.
Right.
It's because they have the fear of the oppressor, the fear of the enemy. That fear keeps our people in bondage. This is a spiritual thing. You have to come into this truth to understand it. Fear keeps us in bondage.
Right.
If we weren't afraid to say, you know what? I'm not going to continue to do the things that I'm doing, and decide to love my people over the oppressor.
Right.
Imagine what we could do. Imagine if we had the strength and the courage to say, I'm turning away from that.
Right.
If I'm going to repent and turn away from doing the things that keep my people down,
Right.
but turn to the things that can lift my people up,
Right.
because we're one body. So if we're one body, if part of the body is doing something that they shouldn't be doing, the rest of the body is affected.
Right.
If a part of the body is fearful, that means that you aren't going to move as a cohesive unit like you're supposed to.
Right.
But when you come together as one body and you move like a unit without fear, you can be 8 brothers that go against 100.
That's right.
You can be 8 brothers that go against 100. You can be 4 brothers that go against 100.
Right.
That's what you can do.
Right.
You can be the brothers in Texas who went to the mission to Acuna against the cartel.
Right.
That's what you can do. Go ahead, Adwan.
And Salakia, because it's a very heavy point you're bringing out. You understand about having no fear. Like, just imagine some of the things that we could do. You understand? You mentioned that we could be 8 people that go against 100. You understand? If we had no fear of our oppressor, we could be 1 people that go against a whole police force that would stop a police force from killing us. You understand? We didn't have it. If we had no fear, George Floyd would still be alive.
Absolutely.
Come on.
Absolutely.
If we had no fear, Dylan Roof would not have expired those people in South Carolina.
Damn right.
Right.
You understand?
Damn right.
If we had no fear, we could have saved so many lives.
That's
You
right.
understand? Who was that brother in New York at the subway who was choked out?
Right.
If we had no fear, he would still be alive.
That's right.
You understand?
That's
But
right.
it's because we have so much fear for the oppressor. You understand? It's like our fear. What was that D word you used? That was a great word. It was a great word to
I'm trying to
use.
think.
You understand? But it freezes us.
Oh, debilitating.
It debilitates us. You understand? It debilitates us. It's just like how it's just like being out in the wilderness. You understand? And if you see say like you see a crocodile that's after a bull and trying to pull him into the water, what do the other bulls do? They just sit there. They sit there. Why? Because they're afraid of the same thing can happen to them. Understand? But they don't realize the power that they have, that they can overpower that force. You understand? And now remember, we're not promoting violence against the oppressor, but we can defend ourselves. You understand? But we can help our people. You understand?
That's right.
That's why the felon that took George Floyd's life was able to do it in the fashion in which he did. That's why he was able to keep his knees on his neck, and as he did that, he looked around. He looked around.
Right.
He didn't even have his weapon drawn to the people.
Right.
But he just looked around. It's like, wow, look at this.
Right.
I got my knee on this man's neck, and there is nobody who is strong enough to stop me.
Right.
There is nobody who's strong enough to stop me. There is nobody who has no fear. Everyone around me is a coward. Understand? And that's why the oppressor treats us the way he does. Because he knows that the majority of our people are afraid of him. But he will not step up to the ISUPK because he knows that the ISUPK it does not fear him. They fear the Father. They fear the Most High.
That's right.
You understand? And if more blacks, Latinos, and Native Indians had that same kind of courage, Yahushua could come back. Yahushua would come back just like that. Because now we are together. We're together in righteousness. You understand? And if I could just real quick, a sidebar. Years ago, I had a conversation with my father, and we were talking politics and race. And he asked me, when do you think that blacks will come together? When do you think blacks come together? And I told him, I said, Dad, blacks will never come together until Jim Crow is put back in place. The Jim Crow laws have to be put back in place. Why? Because we have to depend on each other. Right now, the blacks, Latinos, and Native Indians, whoever, They're not dependent on each other. Why? Because the oppressor is making them rich. The oppressor has once we have to really depend on each other, we have that strength. And if we have that strength, and say we're dependent on each other, guess who we're not dependent on? We're not dependent on the oppressor. And because we're not dependent on him, guess what? Just like Officer Cassian said, we are not in fear of him anymore. We're not worried about him. We're not worried about him taking his treasures, taking his riches. Because we don't need them. We have our own treasures. We have each other.
Right.
We don't have the oppressor. You understand? Salah.
Facts. No, excellent. What you bringing out is true.
Come.
I want everyone to understand that fear is something that we have to expel from the Black, Hispanic, and Native Indian community.
Right.
Fear is the reason why our children get molested and nothing is said about it.
Right.
Fear is the reason why our children go out there, our sons go out there and get the daughters pregnant and leave.
Right.
Fear is the reason why we make whores of the daughters of Zion. Fear is the reason why we don't follow the law, statutes, and commandments. Fear is the reason why we're here right now, because we wanted to continue to do what we were doing. Coming out of Egypt, we want to continue to live the way we were living because we were afraid of the responsibility of truth. Fear, once again, is a responsibility that has been void. Meaning, when you aren't afraid of something, you have to then take on the responsibility of what you do when you have courage. So therefore, if you're fearful, it voids the responsibility.
Right.
I can just do whatever it is that I want to do without the consequences. I don't have to have courage to stand up for something. That's why when I hear people say, well, I'm just going to live my life, they can just do what they want to do. You know why they're saying that? Not only because they're lazy, but because they're afraid that they may offend someone by telling them this right here is the wrong way. Come this way. So if you're fearful, you won't even tell people the truth. Who is the person that stimulated blacks into being afraid? We talk about them all the time. Who stimulated blacks? Who started it and pushed it for blacks to be fearful, but not fearless? Who's responsible for that here in America right now? You probably won't get it, so go ahead, Warrior. No. Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King's Christianity, Martin Luther King's wanting us to hold hands with them is what stimulated our fear of them.
Right.
What he did was say, we're going to have a peaceful, go ahead, Warren.
God, I was about to say the same thing. Martin Luther King, because, you know, he put that, turn the other cheek and all that crap. He took the Bible, instead of using it to build us up, to be even stronger and come together, he used it to put that fear into us, to make us more afraid to not have that strength of togetherness.
Absolutely. Absolutely, that's what he did. He took the Bible and he lied.
Right.
He took the Bible and he twisted it. He therefore pushed the agenda that the oppressor had already been pushing on us since slavery. They then used Martin Luther King, as you say, to go ahead and continue to push that, to make us docile, to make us weak, to make us timid, like how Timothy was doing back in Second Timothy 1:7. So now when we look at us today, we are a product of Martin Luther King.
Right.
We're a product of him saying, you know what? Once we cross this bridge, after they beat the tar out of us, we're still going to go and eat in their restaurants.
Right.
What kind of garbage is that? After they beat the tar out of us, we're still going to go to their movie theaters. We're still going to go to their grocery stores. We still want to go to their schools. We still want to drink from their water fountains. We still want to use the bathroom that they use. Go ahead, Anwar.
After they beat us, we still want to love them.
Right. We still want to love the oppressor after he beats the hell out of us. So ask yourself this. How can we come together, O nation not desired, if we're still loving the people who have their knees on our neck? Right. How? Because we fear. Because we continue to fear. Because the children of Israel are fearful. That's why, Halak, I want you to give me Hebrews chapter 2, verses 14 and 15. The book of Hebrews chapter 2, verses 14 and 15.
Come.
Go ahead, Warrior.
If I may, that's just like, I see social media, when I see ISUPK, when we putting up like food kisses and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you might have, I see a lot of brothers, you know, they call themselves, they know they Israel, like, you know, the fake Israelites, Catholic Israelites, or the Christianites, you know, they always, a lot of times I see them like, oh, shaking my head, like, they're wrong, they shouldn't do it like that, you know, and to me, you know, I look at them like, that's like that fear, that cowardness, like, what are you scared of?
Right.
They're supposed to bow down, kiss our food.
Right. You know why? As we said before, they can't serve the Lord because they fear the oppressor. They can't serve the Lord because there's something that they're still doing that is in the world. One of those things is they're not in the truth. They're not in the ISUPK.
Right.
So when they see us getting our feet kissed, our boot kissed by the oppressor, it puts them in a timid state because they're like, oh God, what are they doing? It's going to trigger something. It's going to make the white folks mad.
Right.
It's going to make them do something to us. That's what's going through their heads. That's what's going through their minds.
Right.
But nothing goes through their mind when they have their knees on our neck. Nothing goes through their mind when they shoot us in the back 16 times when we're unarmed. Nothing goes through their mind when they shoot Tamir Rice in a playground for having a toy gun in his hand.
Right.
Nothing goes through any of their minds when the oppressor is unaliving us. Now, of course, understand this. We have to use certain verbiage so that we don't get flagged on Facebook or YouTube. Now, I am going to use particular words that are in this Bible, but for the sake of not getting flagged, I'll say unalived.
Right.
The reason why we want to say unalived is so it takes the stank off of what the message is that we're trying to deliver.
Right.
That's why they want us to say unalived, because unalived doesn't sound as harsh. Unalived takes away some of the reality of what it is that they do to us. So they want to dumb down the words for people. When they continue to unalive us, they want us to continue to cower down to them. Right. But in the ISUPK, we don't do that.
That's right.
In the ISUPK, we do not do that. Now, in order so we can continue to deliver this message, we're going to be skillful in the words and how we deliver them.
Right.
That being said, go ahead and read Hebrews chapter 2, verse 14 for me, Baba Kashab.
For Hebrews chapter 2, verse 14. For as much then as the children are partakers of flesh and blood, he also himself likewise took part of the same, that through death he might destroy them that had the power of death, that is the devil.
Now, hold on one second right there. You're kind of muffled just a little bit. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to read this for the brothers and give a breakdown of that, because I want you to understand that who is being spoken to and who is the person who is going to die for you. It's all in this verse. It is going to push forth what I'm talking about when it comes to fear. In the book of Hebrews chapter 2, it says, for as much then as the children are partakers of flesh and blood. So when it's saying the children is Israel. And when it's saying partakers of flesh and blood, meaning that's our bodies. That's what we're made of. So we're partaking in the flesh and blood. We're living creatures. And then after that, it says, he also himself likewise took part of the same. So when it's saying he also himself likewise took part of the same, that's then talking about Christ. He also is flesh and blood. He took part of the same. So what they're doing is establishing that he's a physical man. He's a physical person who is about to go through something. Then it says here that through death, he might destroy him that had the power of death. That is the devil. Let me back that up. That through death. So Christ, who also partook of flesh and blood, his body, that he through death might partake, that he through death might destroy him, that the power of death, that through the power of death, that is the devil. So when it's saying here, that is the devil, that's not talking about who you think is the red man at the center of the earth with the pitchfork. This right here is talking about your oppressor. Right. Because the oppressor, what it's doing here is it's establishing that the devil is also a person. It's a physical person, just like Jesus is a physical person. Right. And the children of Israel are physical people, an actual body. So it's letting you know that yes, this body can be taken. But I'm gonna go ahead for time's sake. I'm gonna read the second verse also, warrior, where it says here in verse 15, and deliver them who through fear of death were all to bondage. So going from the top, for as much then as the children are partakers of flesh and blood, he also himself likewise take part of the same, that through death he might destroy him that had the power of death, that is the devil. Now, give me the breakdown of that. Now, the next verse, and deliver them who through fear, when it says deliver them that through fear of death, when he's talking about deliver them through fear of death, he's talking about Israel.
Right.
So when it says here, and deliver them through fear of death, where all their life, throughout their lifetime have been subject to bondage. So what he is saying is that Israel being subject to bondage by fear of death.
Right.
So Christ came and he died and showed you, I will die for you. Do not fear the devil. Do not fear the oppressor. So that's why it says here, and deliver them who through fear of death were all their lifetime subject to bondage. That's telling you that they weren't able to move. They weren't able to do anything because they feared the oppressor. They feared they would die. That's why we don't come and do anything for our people. That's why it was so powerful what happened in Birmingham when they came to the aid of that brother, because we have been trained to not defend our people.
Right.
But in the ISUPK, you are trained to do what? To defend your people.
That's right.
To defend them biblically, to defend this faith biblically, to defend this truth biblically, and to defend yourself physically.
That's right.
So if we have to unalive you to defend ourselves, to defend our brothers, then guess what?
So be it.
So be it. We will have to unalive you. Once again, this isn't to condone anything violent, but we will defend ourselves because we have a right to do so. Go ahead, Adwan.
And so, like, if I could, that was a very heavy scripture that you brought out. You understand? Because the interesting thing is, the tool that the oppressor uses the most against blacks, Latinos, and Native Indians is death.
Mm-hmm.
He uses that fear of death. You understand? Like, what has happened to the Native Indians who have been corralled on reservations?
Mm-hmm.
You understand? And here's the thing. Like, he threatens, understand the expiration of life so much, but he won't do it.
Right.
He won't do it. You understand? Have you noticed that? As much as our people have been killed, as much as our people have been tortured, you understand? Like there's so many conspiracies. You understand when it came to the COVID vaccine?
Right.
There's so many conspiracies when it came to the water, the poisoning of the water in Detroit. You understand? There's so many kind of conspiracies. But now, what is the oppressor not doing? Because really, he has the power to do it. The scripture even said it. He has the power of death. If the oppressor wanted, he could start a race war right now.
Right.
He could start one right now. He has the artillery. He has the military. He has the police. He could go to every black, Latino, Native Indian's house right now with guns and tanks blazing. But guess what? He won't do it. He won't do it. Why? Why? Because there's something so special in you that the oppressor needs. The oppressor needs that. But what he's going to do is he's going to threaten you with the idea of death. He's going to threaten you with that. You understand? The oppressor is actually more afraid of you dying than you living. You understand? Like, take out that fear of the oppressor. Take out that fear. You understand? Live. Don't be like Martin Luther King and cower down to the oppressor and just let him run rampant in your communities and in your villages.
Right.
You understand? Fight back. Because that's also something that the oppressor respects and fears. He respects power, and he also fears it. As much as strong as his military is, he's not just walking into China. As strong as his military is, he's not just walking into Russia. You understand? Because those people will fight back. They have no fear. The oppressor is an absolute snake. That's why the Bible calls him a serpent. What will a snake do? What will a serpent do? A serpent is always going to attack you from behind. They're never going to attack you straight up because they know what kind of power you have.
Right.
Take out that fear of the oppressor, understand, and live. Live as Christ wanted us to live, and righteously and abundantly. You know what I'm saying? We can rule this earth.
Right. Right. Excellent point. Excellent point. Go ahead, Warren.
If I may, that's heavy.
Go ahead.
What y'all bringing out, and you know the oppressor, he don't respect us because we too fearful. And like you was breaking down in verse 15, it says that's the reason why y'all in slavery all your life, because you fear death.
Correct. That's correct. That's the whole premise. You know, we do fear death. We fear death in the physical realm, and we fear death in the spiritual realm.
Right.
And the reason why I say we feel death in the spiritual realm because the old man has to die. We're afraid to let the old man die because we think, well, if the old man dies, I can't do this. If the old man dies, I can't do that.
Right.
But you don't live until after the old man dies. You know why? Because now we're still dead. We're spiritually dead already because we're not in the truth. So you're dead already. What you have to do is come to life. You have to be born again.
Right.
So you have to be willing to die so that you can be born again. That's why I say that the fear isn't just a physical thing, it's also a spiritual thing.
Right.
But understanding that bondage that our people were in is because what? They were in bondage because they had fear. But the Most High commanded us to do what? To not be afraid.
Absolutely.
He commanded us, Salakia, to have courage in the face of adversity.
Right.
Now, what I want you to do is understand this. Throughout tonight, we've been breaking down what it is to be afraid. But I'm going to push some things on you and give you some examples of how the ISUPK is in the scriptures, how we are living those times right now.
Right.
The things that happened in the past are still happening now. Understanding that the scripture says there's no new thing under the sun.
That's right.
So understanding that, I want you to be encouraged by what I'm about to break down now so that you can see that the Most High has been with every single one of his priests and prophets from the beginning into this very minute that I'm sitting here teaching you this. To this very second that every school in the ISUPK across this country and outside the country, what they're teaching you, the Most High is all with us.
Right.
We have no fear of bringing out this truth. So what I'm going to do, I want you to pull up the book of Joshua, chapter 1, verse 9, Baba Kashah.
Come on, sir.
1 and 9.
Come on.
Read it when you have it.
Come on, sir.
What I want you to understand today is that the Most High, he will never leave us nor forsake us.
Right.
If he gives a command, if he says it, then so be it. Then it is. So we have to have faith, and it's an excellent point that you brought out, Mawasar, earlier, that a lack of faith breeds fear. A lack of faith is the birthplace of fear for many things. But if we have faith, the grain of a mustard seed, we can move mountains. It takes courage. It takes fearlessness to do that.
Yeah.
Once you read Joshua 1 and 9, you got that for me, Baba Shah?
Come on, sir.
Go ahead.
Come on. The book of Joshua, chapter 1 and verse 9. Have not I commanded thee? Be strong and of a good courage. Be not afraid, neither be thou dismayed. For the Lord thy God is with thee, whithersoever thou goest.
Now, that right there is some meat in this topic that we're discussing. because Joshua had a job to do. Joshua was put in place. He was like basically Moses, for lack of a better word, like his second in command. After Moses died, Joshua had to step up.
Right.
Joshua had to lead Israel into the lands and take the lands that the Lord had promised us. He wasn't going to go in there and say, hey, let me have AI back. Let me have Canaan back. Let me have these. Let me go into these lands and just ask for them. No, he had to lead these men into battle to go and do this. He couldn't have fear when that was to be done. So when it's saying here, have I not commanded thee to be strong and of good courage? The Most High said it. Have I not commanded thee to be strong and of good courage? Be not afraid. That has been the theme throughout the night. Be not afraid, neither be thou dismayed. So dismayed, don't stress, don't worry, don't faint. For the Lord thy God is with thee whithersoever thou goest. So the whithersoever thou goest is when we go into KC, when we go into Atlanta, when we go into Acuna, when we go into Kentucky. Whithersoever thou goest, he's going to be with us.
Right.
So we cannot be afraid to go out and do this work because he told us, here's what I need you to do. He told Joshua, here's what I need you to do. Take these men and lead them here. Right. Guess what? Our brothers were led out 2 Saturdays ago by Officer Yarmaya. But I'm not going to get ahead of myself. But I want you to understand where I'm going by showing you that what we're doing is biblical. What we're doing is in the Bible. What we're facing is in the Bible. Right. What the Most High wanted us to have, this strength and this courage and this understanding in this book, we're doing it here in the ISUPK. Right. This isn't by accident that I'm breaking this down to you. Now, I want you to understand here, when this was said to Joshua, Joshua had to be encouraged because he knew he had a great task to fulfill. After the death of Moses, basically taking over and leading the nation of Israel after we come out of Egypt. Right. So what I want to do now is I want you to go back to Joshua 1:1. We're going to read Joshua 1 through 5. Go ahead, warrior. The book of Joshua, chapter 1, verse 1.
Come on, sir. The book of Joshua, chapter 1, and verse 1. After the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord, it came to pass that the Lord spake unto Joshua, the son of Nun, Moses minister, saying, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now therefore arise, go over this Jordan, thou and all this people, unto the land which I do give to them, even to the children of Israel. Every place that the sole of your foot shall tread upon, that have I given unto you, as I said unto Moses. From the wilderness and this Lebanon, even unto the great river, the river Euphrates, all the land of the Hittites, and unto the great sea, toward the going down of the sun shall be your coast. Verse 5, there shall not any man be able to stand before thee all the days of thy life. As I was with Moses,
go ahead, Warren.
Come. So I will be with thee.
Now,
as he was
with Moses, as he was with Moses, he said, I will be with thee. So he was telling Joshua to go out and do this work. Right. I'm going to be with you just like how I was with Moses. Right. In the ISUPK under commanding Journey Yohana, he has said for us to go out and do this work. So just like he was with Moses, just like he was with Joshua, just like he's with commanding Journey Yohana, he's also with us when we go out to do this work. Right. So when it's saying here, the whithersoever thou goest, understand when he told them to go out all those lands to get that land that was promised to them back, whithersoever thou goest. That's what he's telling you. Wherever you go, I'm with you. So if you understand with Timothy, when Paul had to reiterate to him, do not be afraid. Right. When the Most High is reiterating to Joshua, do not be afraid. Right. Throughout the Bible, he has told us to be of good courage, to not fear, to don't worry about the man who can take your life but worry about the one. Be afraid of the one that can take your life and your soul.
Right.
Only the Most High can do that. So the men of the ISUPK under Commander Johanna, we go into battle every single week. Every time we hit the streets, whether it be, like I said, with the Kentucky 8, Acuna, what have you, wherever we go, and there are going to be other men who are going to get their glory as well because we're warring all the time. But wherever we go, the Lord is saying that I am with you. So if the Most High is telling us that he's with us, if you say that you believe what this book says, especially to those of you who are hearing this truth, because the Christian can't, then we are to go out there and be fearless and face any type of evil that comes before us. Mm-hmm. Because he's telling us this. Matter of fact, I'm going to push it even further. Give me the book of Romans, chapter 8, verse 31. The book of Romans, chapter 8, verse 31. Because the scripture says precept upon precept, line upon line. Here a little, there a little. That way, when I'm bringing these scriptures together, you can understand that these are different accounts that are coming from different priests and prophets who are breaking down what they were going through and how the Most High dealt with them and said, don't be afraid, go do this work. Don't be afraid, go do this work. Don't be afraid, go do this work.
Right.
The men in the ISUPK weren't afraid and went to go do this work.
Right.
You have Romans 8:31 for me?
Come on, sir.
Go ahead.
Come on. Romans chapter 8 and verse 31. What shall we say to these things? Is if God be for us, who can be against us?
Think about that now. Think about that. What shall we say to these things? If God be for us, who can be against us? We know that God is with the ISUPK.
Right.
We know that he's for us. So if that's the case, who can be against us?
Right.
Not 100 purple penis eaters.
That's right.
Not 100 purple pigs.
That's right.
Not 100 purple LGBTQ participants.
Right.
They can't be against us.
Right.
Because their numbers mean nothing.
That's right.
I mean, think about it. If we want to talk about numbers, to prove to you that numbers mean absolutely nothing, I'm going to give you Samson. Samson slew 10,000 Philistines by himself. Was Samson afraid? Absolutely not. He unalived 10,000 Philistines.
Right.
By himself. Mm-hmm. You can't do that if you're a coward. Right. You cannot do that if you're not afraid. The spirit that was in Samson when he took out those Philistines is a spirit that's right here in the ISUPK. Right. It's a spirit amongst the 8 men in Atlanta who went out and went to war for our people.
That's right.
That's the spirit that were on them. So I'm going to say this like I said at camp. There's a man that's much greater and much wiser than I by the name of Captain Kahan Thamyad, who said something that was profound to me, that sometimes you have to fight your people to fight for your people.
Right.
So we have to fight our people to fight for our people.
That's right.
So in order to deliver this truth, we have to go out there and go to war, whether it be spiritual, mental, or physical. We got to go to war so that the people who are supposed to get it can get it.
That's right.
We have to go to war for them. In order to do that, in order to fight that type of adversity, you have to be fearless.
That's right.
You have to be Atlanta brave.
That's right.
Which is what the men in the ISUPK are.
Yeah, I'm right.
Go ahead.
And so like you're just bringing out so much heavy points. You understand, especially how you talked about Joshua. You understand. You talked about how the quote from Captain Kahan. You understand how we have to sometimes we even have to fight against our own people. You understand, so that we can fight for our people. You understand, right. And also going against the numbers, going against so many people who choose to live an alternative lifestyle. Go against so many people who choose to choose feminine colors over masculine colors. You understand? And if I could, Halak, if you could, because what we have to do is we have to really make a decision. We really have to make a decision. You understand? You've been bringing out so many heavy points. You understand about not being afraid. Not being afraid, you understand? And we have to choose to not be afraid, you understand? We have to really make a decision. If you could, Halak, real quick, let's go to Joshua chapter 24, verse 15, just real quick. You understand? Because our people, blacks, Latinos, and Native Indians, have to understand they have a very serious decision to make. Have a very serious decision to make. You understand? Are you going to be strong? Or are you going to be weak? You understand? Are you going to be fearful of the oppressor? You understand? Like we really have to make that decision because a lot of us are really how you say teeter-totting. You understand? Like how you mentioned that the people who see us, the locals who see us, who know us, will agree with what we're saying, but they won't follow it. You understand? And that's how a couple weeks ago, how our people, our brothers, you know what I'm saying, fought against a sea of purple people, you understand, who really choose to live an alternative lifestyle on the down low. You understand? Like those men were not afraid of those men. You understand? Because they had made a solid decision in their minds. And if we could, let's read the scripture to see what kind of decision that they really made. You understand? Let's get that.
Come. Joshua chapter 24 and verse 15.
Uh-huh.
And if it seem evil unto you to serve the Lord, choose you this day whom you will serve.
That's right. Choose you this day whom you will serve. That's what we have to do. We have to make a decision. Who are we going to serve? Are we going to serve the Most High? Or are we going to serve our enemies?
Right.
Are we going to serve the oppressor? You understand? We're going to follow after his traditions, after his culture. You understand? Because we're just so afraid of what he could do. You understand? We have to choose who we are going to serve. We're going to serve the Most High, who put us on this earth to rule. Right. That's what we have to decide. You understand? Keep going.
Come. Whether the gods which your fathers served that were on the other side of the flood.
And you understand? Now here, this is Joshua talking to the people, trying to reassure them and also help them to make a decision. You know what I'm saying? Back then, the people, are you know what I'm saying? Us, our ancestors, back then, they couldn't make the decision. Did they want to fight? Did they want to side with the oppressors? Did they want to side with the gods that they were not taught to serve? You understand? And that's what we have to do. We have to do that now. You understand? Are we going to do that? Are we going to side with Martin Luther King and his philosophies?
Right.
You understand? Keep going.
Come. Or the gods of the Amorites.
Or the gods of the Amorites. Another culture. More traditions that we were not taught. More traditions that were actually beaten into us. You understand? Like that's what we have to say. Are we really going to side with that? Are we going to decide to follow after a tradition and a culture that was beat into us? You understand that is not normal. It is an abnormal lifestyle to live. You understand? Like we have to fight against that in our spirits, fight against that in our minds. Is that what we're going to finally decide to serve? Keep going.
Come. In whose land ye dwell.
That's right, because even now we dwell in America. We dwell in America, but we can still decide not to follow after their traditions. We can still decide not to be fearful of the oppressor because we know that we serve a greater God. We serve a greater God. That's what the Christian church is always saying, but they don't believe it. They always want to say, what a mighty God we serve. What a mighty God we serve. But guess who they really bow down to? They bow down to the oppressor and his tradition and his ways. Keep going.
Come. But as for me and my house.
You understand? As for this house right here, the Israelite School Universal Practical Knowledge, started on 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under Commander Junior Honda. What are we going to do?
We will serve the Lord.
We will serve the Lord, you understand? Because it's the Father that we fear and not the oppressor.
Right.
Salaki.
Right. Excellent points.
Come.
Excellent points. So understanding this, understanding what we have going on when we're talking about this fear and how it debilitates us. One thing, we don't have that problem here in the ISUPK. Understanding that we don't have that problem here in the ISUPK, there's an example of that, as I said, all throughout the scriptures with Joshua and what he did. But let's go to Officer of 5,000 Yarmiyah, who led 7 men, 8 including himself, into battle, into Atlanta 2 Saturdays ago, in the midst of chaos amongst what they call the Black Gay Pride, which was that weekend. And that's what you call it. Black Gay Pride, so we can't be flagged because you call it Black Gay Pride. And what was a sea of LGBTIUIC members? That's a complete alphabet of men in purple who have a purple lifestyle, if you understand what I'm saying. So what happened was they were offended. They're offended at the truth that was being brought out against that lifestyle.
Right.
And it caused them to react. All 100 plus of the purple penis eaters decided to attack 8 warriors, not understanding that they were dealing with 8 warriors and not 8 cowards.
Right.
I'll say it again. They didn't understand that they were dealing with 8 warriors and not 8 cowards because they had numbers. But the scriptures tells us what? To not faint, to not grow weary, to not be afraid of people that are greater than thou. And we'll get to that. But to defend the faith, he took the brothers out there. To be defenders of this truth, he took the brothers out there. And he did it fearlessly. They stood their ground in the face of evil. They stood their ground in the face of wickedness, in the face of darkness, against a people that were much more than us in number. Just like the story of Joshua leading Israel in the battle for the land that was promised to them. Mm-hmm. What happened was Officer Yamaya led the men into Atlanta to where our people were to tell them about the promise to them.
Right.
Understand, we're in the Bible. We went into war to go tell our people, but not only to just tell them about the promise, but also to warn them. We have to go into war to go and do these things. Because what happens? Sometimes when you don't want the message to get out to the people, what do they try to do? They have a term called, they say, don't kill the messenger. Well, they want to kill the messenger. The messenger is the men of the ISUPK.
Right.
And what they want to do is they want to kill the message. They want to stop us from doing what it is that we're supposed to do. They wanted to instill fear in us, but guess what? They couldn't instill that fear. The reason why they couldn't is because you can't bully the men of the Lord.
That's right.
You see, what the purple penis eaters do is they took a page out of Martin Luther King's book. The oppressor used Martin Luther King to make us docile, to make us weak.
Right.
The oppressor also uses the purple penis eaters, IUIC, LGBTQ members, to also try to make us weak. Because when they go out there, they don't go out there to lift our people up.
Right.
They go out there to push our people down.
Right.
And then when the defenders of the faith, the defenders of the truth are out there, they want to go out there and they want to stifle that word.
Right.
But they weren't able to do that. Their job is to use the tactics of the oppressor.
Right.
What does the oppressor do? He tries to bully you.
Right.
He tries to bully you with what? He tries to bully you with his numbers. So the purple penis eaters thought that they were going to be able to bully 8 absolute warriors.
Right.
With their numbers. And they found out that they couldn't. Because if the oppressor goes and he beats the snot out of you, you're not going to do it again. So they figured, well, let us try to at least attempt to put our hands on them. Let us try to at least stop them. And maybe they won't come back out here. Well, guess what? This past Saturday, the men in the ISUPK were right back in the same spot.
Right.
Same spot. Because they had no fear.
Damn right.
Now, the average man wouldn't have gone back. He would say, well, I don't want any of that. I'm not going back to that. And if that was you, you're a coward. If that was you, you can't be a part of the ISUPK.
That's right.
Because in order to put this truth out there and to defend this truth, you have to be willing to die for it. You have to be willing to be unalived for this truth, to be able to deliver this message. So what I want you to do is, after understanding what Officer Yarmiyah did and the brothers who went out there and defended this faith, to show you once again that we are in the Bible, to show you that what I'm teaching you about the truth is in the scriptures and no one will be able to stand against what I'm teaching you, I want you to pull up the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 20, verse 1. The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 20, verse 1. Baba Kashab.
Come on, sir.
We're going to prove all things. Go ahead, Warren.
Come on. The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 20 and verse 1. When thou goest out to battle against thine enemies, and seest horses and chariots, and a people more than thou.
Stop right there. And a people more than thou. So when it's saying in a people more than thou, it's a larger number of people. So when it's saying in a people more than thou, he's saying when you go out to battle and you see chariots and horses and a large group of men or an army more than you, bigger than you, go ahead.
Come. Be not afraid of them.
Stop right there. Be not afraid. To be afraid. It doesn't say to, hey, well, let me turn around and turn tail. It says, be not afraid of who?
Of them.
Be not afraid of them. Go ahead.
Come. For the Lord thy God is with thee.
Go ahead.
Which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt.
Now, understand that. That was Deuteronomy.
Yeah.
To understand, and I'm going to tie these things up for you. He said this here, letting you know that I'm going to be with you. He had Moses bring us up out of Egypt. He had Joshua continue the fight, to continue to lead the men and to push them forward.
Right.
Officer Yahweh continued to lead his men and push us forward.
Right.
To bring the truth to our people who are in bondage. In order to push forth this truth, we have to be fearless. In order to do anything to serve the Lord, we have to be fearless. We have gone up against Christians. We have gone up against Muslims. We have gone up against Buddhists. We've gone up against any type of religion there is. And guess what? We've destroyed them all. Guess what? We've destroyed the purple penis eaters, IUIC.
That's right.
We continue to destroy anyone who comes up against us with this truth, thinking that we're going to back down or stop. Because in the scripture it says, who am I going to send to go forth and tell this truth? Who am I going to send? And what was said? Here am I, send me, send me. So what I want you to understand with this class is that you have to trust in the Lord.
Right.
So I'm going to close it out and read this verse myself. It says here in the book of Proverbs, chapter 29, verse 25, the fear of man bringeth a snare, but whoso putteth his trust in the Lord shall be safe. And with that, I'll pass the class over to the precinct officer, Hadar.
Clap that up. One time. All right. This is the ISUPK security announcements. We are the ISUPK, start out of 1 West, 125th Street, Harlem, New York. Rule for new brother and sister. When a new brother and sister comes to the school, they are off limits for 6 months. They are to be saluted only. They hit the shed themselves of the world. If they need transportation, the teacher will arrange it. After 6 months, if a brother or sister has an interest in a particular person, he or she must give permission from the head to speak to that brother or sister. There is another 6 months in which the brother and sister will court each other. After this 6-month period, the brother and sister will get permission from the head to marry. Tithes, Brazilian commandment, come from the book of Numbers, chapter 18, verse 21, and also the book of Malachi, chapter 3, verses 8 through 10, which means 10 in the Hebrew by Isura. 10% of every penny of increase the Lord gives you, give to the treasury department or teacher. Priest fund, free will offering for priests, not mandatory. Whatsoever amount you would like to give. Upcoming holy convocations is the memorial blowing of the trumpets.
Right.
You understand? Taking place this Friday. You understand? September 15th. All right. And if you need a reference, you can look at the book of Leviticus, chapter 23, verses 27 through chapter 23, verses 24 through 25. All right. And reminder for all brothers and sisters, all Akim and Aquafium, to check the bulletin board in the hallway for any changes. Also, if any brother who wants to be a trooper in the school, start wearing all black. That's boots, shirts, pants, headbands, and war scarves. And if you could, try to remember to Google the address. And say that is 3353 Glenwood Road in Decatur, Georgia. And that can help build the algorithm for the school. And also, just again, for the people who are traveling and coming to the feast this Friday, the address is 3353 Glenwood Road in Decatur, Georgia. And with that, we'll give a courteous salute to look for the teacher. Men Israel, I'm out of Shabbat. I'm out. Yahweh Shem Yahshua Brakatah.
Yahweh Shem Yahshua.
All right, and what we just said in the Hebrew, may the Most High, in the name of Christ, bless you. Yahweh, hands down. But now give a great salute for the sisters online. Ben Israel, Aman Shabbat. Amaj, Barak. Yahweh Shemar Alatah by Shem Yahshua. And what we just said in the Hebrew, may the Most High watch over you in the name of Christ. Yahweh, hands down, class dismissed.
I got you.
For so long you've been sighing and crying, begging for justice, and here the Lord is bringing you justice right here to your streets.